Welcome to case 4 in our series ABG of the week. This week we have a very interesting ABG for you, and my request is to please listen to this video right up to the end. A 20-year-old boy was admitted under us in a semi-conscious state with a history of fever and chills for 4 days. Soon after admission, he had one episode of generalized convulsion. His blood pressure was 90/60. He was tachycardic, tachypneic. He was responding to painful stimuli. There was no history of alcoholism, and he was on no medications prior to this illness, but since the past 4 days, he has received antibiotics from his family physician. This is the report of his biochemistry and blood gas. What I want you to do is, I want you to interpret this blood gas, as we always do, in terms of what is the oxygenation status, what is the ventilator status, what is the acid-base status, and then finally a clinical conclusion tying up all the abnormalities with specific etiology. Bring out your paper and pen and a calculator and pause this video. Once you have committed an answer on paper, then resume the video and follow with my interpretation. What is the oxygenation status? This patient is on minimal supplemental oxygen. His PO2 is more than 100, so there is hyperoxemia. On first glance, it appears that there is no oxygenation problem. The PO2s are good, and you could probably stop the oxygen, and that's the end of the story. But this could be a mistake in critically ill patients. Whenever you have the opportunity, please calculate the alveolar arterial gradient. In this case, the alveolar arterial gradient turns out to be 53.7, which is more than double what you would expect in a 20-year-old boy. This means that there is underlying lung pathology. Ventilator status, well, the PCO2 is 33, it is low. This patient is hyperventilating. Coming to the acid-base status, there is an acidemia because the pH is less than normal. The low bicarbonate explains this, so there is a primary metabolic acidosis. You know very well that whenever you pick up a primary disorder, the next two steps are compensation and then working up the abnormality. So compensation. In this patient, the bicarbonate is 16. The expected PCO2 for a bicarbonate of 16 would be 28 to 32. Here it is 33. So we can say that the compensation is appropriate and there is no respiratory abnormality. The next important step in all metabolic acidosis is to calculate the actual anion gap. The actual anion gap in this patient is 16. The expected anion gap compensating for albumin and pH is 10. The actual anion gap is much higher than the expected anion gap, and therefore this patient has a high anion gap metabolic acidosis. In all such cases where you have HAGMA, you must calculate the corrected bicarbonate, and to do that you must first calculate the delta anion gap, which is 6. Take this delta anion gap and add it to the actual bicarb, which is 16, and you get a value of 22. Any value which is 24 plus minus 2, or in other words from 22 to 26, means that there is no hidden metabolic disorder. So this patient has a high anion gap metabolic acidosis, a high alveolar arterial gradient, and is hyperventilating. The high alveolar arterial gradient, most certainly in this patient who has fever and oxygenation abnormality, is some sort of an acute lung injury or an acute pneumonia developed. An X-ray chest or a CT scan would confirm this diagnosis. The possible causes of HAGMA are many. In this person who is in the post-convulsive phase and is hypotensive, you need to think about lactic acidosis, and though the lactates are not given, you need to get the serum lactates done. Renal failure is another common cause of high anion gap metabolic acidosis, and in this patient the creatinine is actually high, 3.5, the upper limit of normal being 1.2 milligram per deciliter. That this is a very common mistake made by junior doctors into thinking that this is renal failure. In renal failure, the creatinine is high, but the increase in urea is proportionate. In this case, the urea is 1.5 times the upper limit of normal. So from 40 it becomes 60. But the creatinine is almost 3 times the upper limit of normal, and therefore what we see here is that the increase in creatinine is disproportionately high compared to increase in urea. So, what are the causes of low urea creatinine ratio? There are three common causes: diabetic ketoacidosis, rhabdomyolysis or tumor lysis syndrome, and antibiotics such as cephalosporins and tetracycline. We can rule out diabetic ketoacidosis because the blood sugars are not raised. In fact, it is low. There is no evidence of hyperkalemia or other features of rhabdomyolysis or tumor lysis. But this patient has received antibiotics from the general practitioner, and cephalosporins are very commonly prescribed antibiotics. So this could be the reason that this is an antibiotic associated increase in the serum creatinine with a low urea creatinine ratio. Another important cause of high 9-gap metabolic acidosis, which one considers if these are ruled out, is alcohol intoxication or salicylate intoxication. But again, this person does not take alcohol and there is no history of salicylate administration. What is the relevance of blood sugar being low? You see, when we deal with high 9-gap metabolic acidosis, usually the situation is hyperglycemia. So if you have high 9-gap metabolic acidosis with hypoglycemia, I am very happy because it limits the differential diagnosis into 5-6 possibilities. Most of them can be easily ruled out. One is alcohol intoxication and advanced liver disease. This person is not an alcoholic and there's no evidence of advanced liver disease. Post-convulsive, you can get this combination. Yes, our patient had a convulsion and is in the post-convulsive phase. So this is a very likely reason for this pattern. Adrenal insufficiency and myxedema coma. These are common endocrine abnormalities that can cause high 9-gap metabolic acidosis and hypoglycemia, but neither the history or the lab value supports this differential diagnosis. Poisonings, especially with metformin, salicylate, paracetamol or quinine, can also cause this, but our patient never received any medications prior to these 4 days of illness and has not received these in the hospital. Severe malaria is a distinct possibility, especially in middle and low income countries, and the low platelets, the deranged liver enzymes, the low glucose and metabolic acidosis all support the picture of severe malaria. Thinking of severe malaria, we sent the peripheral smear for malarial parasite and we were very happy to receive a positive feedback that the peripheral smear was studied with Plasmodium vivae. I hope you enjoyed this blood gas interpretation. What I want to stress here is that it is not enough to diagnose a metabolic disorder as high 9-gap or normal 9-gap or acute respiratory disorder. You must come to an etiological diagnosis. And very often it is not possible to come to an etiological diagnosis without looking at the supporting biochemical values given to us. Whether it is urea creatinine, whether it is glucose, whether it is the electrolytes, take everything into consideration to narrow down the differential diagnosis and look for patterns like this pattern of high 9-gap metabolic acidosis with hypoglycemia. I hope you enjoyed this blood gas of the week. If you liked the video, please tell us in the comment section below. If you have suggestions, we would love to hear them. If you're new to this channel, please click on the subscribe button and ring the bell icon so that you can be informed whenever we upload a new video. We usually do this once a week. Till we meet again in our next video, take care, be safe.